What they really should be focusing on from a large-scale perspective, besides like getting agents out and actually doing their jobs, is more transparency. They need way more transparency. And then with cases like this that are super high profile that people are interested in, they need to be transparent about those, especially like this Charlie Kirk case was a great opportunity for them to really build trust back with the American public, and they fumbled it. Pam Bondi with the Epstein files fumbled it big time. The thing with Cash, and this is the problem, overpromise, underdeliver. In the government, we have a saying, underpromise, overdeliver. He did it the opposite way because he was a social media guy beforehand. Him, Pam Bondi, the Epstein thing was a monumental mess up. Monumental. There's no excuse for that.
I think the clearest example of a beta male that we've ever seen is our current FBI director, which is really bad for a number of reasons. I want to talk about that, but first we should react to this clip of him. I don't think the full podcast is out yet, but as they are trying to find the Brown University shooter, they can't find this guy.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised they haven't caught him yet, dude. What the hell?
The manhunt is going on. They decided to release whatever this is. Take a look.
No. You are not from Israel.
No.
So how did we get to, are you a Mossad agent?
You know, that's a great question.
Where's her ring? Just to clarify, how often has he traveled to see you since January 20th? Has there been one moment where you're like, you can't make this up?
Well, he laughs exactly like Akash Singh did in that Flagrant episode.
Oh, man.
That forced laugh.
You know, it's just not a good look, dude. It's really not a good look. And here's the thing, too. You know what's funny? A buddy of mine's FBI agent, right? I used to work cases with him back in the day. We had a really big Lion King case back like 10 years ago, 2015, South Texas. And I said, dude, it'd be awesome to have you on and we could talk about our old case that we did. They're all done now. Everybody got prosecuted, whatever. People would love it. He's like, all right, let me hit my agency, see if I could do it. They said, hell no, right? Hell no. But then you see the director go on and do a podcast like this. Like, come on, man. What's going on here? You know, and I kind of knew, I'll be honest with you, I knew deep down he's going to get denied, but I say, you know what, try it, right? Denied immediately. HQ's like, hell no. But now you got the director, right? Granted, this was under Chris Wray, but now you got the director doing podcasts. I mean, look, bro, it is, you know, I'm very conflicted with Cash because I think he has done some things good, right? But he's also done some really stupid things too. The reason why I say this is because I'm speaking from a former 1811, former special agent perspective. So I know what the FBI was like before he got in. So I know like little intricacies that the American public simply won't understand, that if I explain it to them, they might say, okay, I can see why, but they're not going to care about that stuff. So to be simple, is the FBI better now than under Wray? 100%, 100%. But does that mean it's still great? No, like it still has a lot of work to do, but that goes to show how far the agency had fallen. So
it's not really a high bar, is it?
Yeah, it's fallen a lot, dude. So the only people that are really going to appreciate how the agency has changed and gotten better are people in the field or people that used to be in the field like myself, right? Like,
so it got better for the feds, but not for solving crimes, so to speak.
They are better for solving crimes, and I'll explain why. Okay, so we're really going to get in the weeds here. One of the historic problems of the FBI for a very long time was that they're lazy, all right? Lazy. You do a big case, they come in at the end with their Ray jackets, right? Get all the credit, even though they didn't run the case, they didn't help you with nothing, right? They just come in and they just take all the glory, right? Because they're the premier agency, everybody knows who they are. So when they show up with those JTTF jackets, people think it's an FBI case. It's not. And they've been doing this for a very long time. Anyone that works in law enforcement will tell you this, right? They don't go out and do surveillance. They don't like to do overtime. They don't like to, well, agents really don't get overtime. But they're not out there like hitting the streets hard. That's why when Cash Patel said, hey, I'm going to get a lot of these agents out of D.C., that's what he meant. Because FBI agents, especially out of like, you know, slow field offices like DC, whatever, they're not doing nothing. Like some of these agents have been on the job for 10 years. They've made maybe one criminal arrest their entire career. To put things in perspective, when I started my career in Laredo, Texas with HSI, dude, I was doing 5 criminal arrests a day because people were getting caught on the border, smuggling drugs, smuggling illegal aliens, smuggling guns southbound, smuggling money southbound. So we were catching people every single day in all federal arrests. So the FBI has a bad reputation for not actually getting out there and fighting crime. So one thing that Bongino and Patel did, which I will give them credit for, but the American public isn't going to understand, is they got their out of the office and told them you need to go on task forces. You need to bring down the murder rate, get involved with the state and locals more, start hitting the streets more, start making more arrests, which they've been able to do. You know, so they've become a little bit less bureaucratic when it comes to actual law enforcement. But these are small changes that the American public aren't really going to understand or care about, right? This is shit that only I will understand because I used to come from that world. So what they really should be focusing on from a large-scale perspective, besides like getting agents out and actually doing their jobs, is more transparency. They need way more transparency. And then with cases like this that are super high profile that people are interested in, they need to be transparent about those, especially like this Charlie Kirk case was a great opportunity for them to really build trust back with the American public, and they fumbled it. Pam Bondi with the Epstein files fumbled it big time, right? So,
well, Susie Wiles has called that out. Apparently, now everyone is coming to defend her and say she didn't actually mean what she said. She's actually the best. She loves Trump, but she came out in 11 different interviews with Vanity Fair. And these are some of the, I guess, tidbits they were able to extract from these lengthy 11 interviews. So make of that what you will. I find it weird how like every single RNC stooge on the planet is coming out and posting how much they love Susie Wiles right now, though. But it says, Wiles said Trump has an alcoholic's personality. J.D. Vance has been a conspiracy theorist for a decade. Russell Vought is a right-wing absolute zealot, and Pam Bondi completely whiffed in her handling of the Epstein files. The only thing I've got is, I mean, I think I probably agree with her on her characterization of most of those things. But the thing I got to say is like the FBI was created specifically to go after communists and try to eradicate this working class consciousness in the U.S., those who were sympathetic or viewed as sympathetic to the Soviet Union. That, if it wasn't the stated goal, that is what it did for the overwhelming duration of its early years. And I guess it was kind of a way to connect high crime with the government and go after these people. And though the FBI might be less bureaucratic for people that were actually solving crimes like yourself today, now than it was 5 years ago, the problems of, I guess, coordinating with high crime or states across the world to cover up or execute certain plans is the problem that most people want fixed that they don't see fixed.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one thing, going back to the transparency problem, right, with the FBI, I'll give you a funny story if you want to talk about like how stupid the FBI can be. We used to call them like famous but incompetent. I'll never forget this. I was doing a Hawala case with them one time. It was a terrorism case on a Hawala cell. And it was us, FBI and Secret Service. I was working for HSI out of New Haven. And I remember I gave them information on an individual's travel pattern, right? Because HSI has very detailed accesses to people who travels in and out of the country, right? It's basically, you got all the customs. I gave them this information. And then I think like I was out on the street one time doing surveillance or whatever. And I called the analyst back from the FBI. I said, hey, that information, can you tell me what it was? And she literally said, that's classified. I said, what? I gave you that information. What are you talking about? It's classified. Oh, yeah, it's classified. That's my info. That's the bureaucracy and the red tape of what the FBI is. Like, you give them information and they don't give you information. Anyone that works in law enforcement, I don't know if anyone in your chat works in law enforcement, whatever, they'll tell you, work with the FBI, it's a one-way street, right? So this has been a problem that's plagued the agency for a very long time. They overclassify everything. It'll be some stuff that isn't even worth being classified, and they'll classify it just because. Because when they say it's classified, they don't have to share information now. You know, so
and
that's
we have
a big
no
problem.
museum of the deep state, as promised by
Yeah,
Patel.
we don't have. Yeah, he said he was going to do it day one, man. What happened to that Sean Ryan interview, man? So the thing with Cash, and this is the problem: overpromise, underdeliver. In the government, we have a saying: underpromise, overdeliver. He did it the opposite way because he was a social media guy beforehand. Him, Pam Bondi, you know, the Epstein thing was a monumental mess up. Monumental, right? There's no excuse for that. And that's not just like a lot of people blame Cash Patel and Pam Bondi. We need to put a little bit of accountability on Tulsi Gabbard too, and I'll tell you why. Tulsi Gabbard, as the DNI, is the head of all the intelligence agencies. She oversees all of them, all 31, 32, 33 intel agencies. The problem with Epstein is this. A lot of people focus on the sex trafficking. Fine, fair enough. The sex trafficking was a part of the criminal investigation that the FBI ran. But people forget that we all know he was also a spy for a foreign government. That is automatically going to fall under the purview of the CIA and the NSA and the DIA and all these other intelligence agencies. Now, here's the problem. The FBI is only going to have a limited perspective on what Epstein was doing because they looked at him from a criminal perspective, and then they're going to have some limited high side stuff, which is classified stuff. The CIA is going to have a file. DIA is going to have a file. NSA is going to have a file. All of these different agencies are going to have a different file. Now, the problem here is that Pam Bondi and Cash Patel don't know what DIA has, what NSA has, what CIA has, etc. Right? Pam Bondi is the head of the DOJ. DOJ really only has like maybe one or two agencies that even are members of the intel community. So a lot of people, you know, were beating up on Pam Bondi for being incompetent, which she is, by the way. But to put all the ownage of this monumental F up on her and Cash Patel is a bit disingenuous. It's a failure from the entire government. Because Tulsi Gabbard, who is head of the entire intel community, you're telling me she can't get us what we need to get when it comes to the classified stuff on Epstein? Everything goes through her. So Pam Bondi and Kash Patel definitely dropped the ball, but Tulsi Gabbard's got to be wrapped in too, because there's definitely classified stuff on Epstein based on what he was doing and the type of information he was collecting and who he was working with.
Well, I mean, look at what she did in Iran. She knew the truth about Iran. She knew the truth about their uranium enrichment levels. How do we know that for a fact? Because she was the #1 person who was convincing Donald Trump to stay in the JCPOA back during his first term.
You're right.
She's like an expert on this. She was crucified for this and for Syria. But even though that is true, and she did, stick her neck out back then, she is still a staunch Zionist. And this is as a result of probably her political upbringing, also her religion and her worldview as a result of her family upbringing. But she's very critical of the Palestinian resistance. She labels them as terrorists. She's very critical of the Lebanese resistance. But Syria and Iran, she's like much more pacified towards and level-headed towards. So it's odd. And Yemen, she's also spoken out against airstrikes in Yemen previously, but not when Trump did it this time. So it seems as though she's just been completely compromised, completely abandoned all principles. She's climbing the ladder. Roger Stone wants her to run for president next time. I don't have any faith in that woman whatsoever. She turned into Colin Powell. She's Indian Colin Powell.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that the Zionist lobby has so much power in the Trump administration. Like what you mentioned with the JCPOA, like that's crazy that like she totally did a 180. Totally did a 180 on that. And I was like, because everybody knows, dude, like the enrichment program that they were running, it was for negotiation purposes. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it was for. It was like, hey, this is the trade away. Let's go ahead. Let's get this deal done, right? Let's get these sanctions taken off, right? And they were working very well. I think that's one of the few things that the Obama administration did well was this nuclear deal, right? But Trump comes in, Mike Pompeo, the Zionist lobby, hey, get these guys out of here, right? They pull out the deal. Mike Pompeo registers the IRGC as a terrorist organization, and then bam, now it's free reign, and that's what Israel wanted. I mean, the fact that Netanyahu came to America and defied a U.S. president in the United States, right, and delivered a speech that was basically like condemning Obama for even doing this deal, like that just goes to show, man, like who runs this country? It's ridiculous.